Welcome, everyone. We have people coming in. Thank you for your time and visiting us today. We have a topic that is going to be very, very interesting for business owners. So hold your horses. I can't wait to hear from Dalil. Okay. We'll get started in about 1 minute. Allow people to join. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Okay, we just ask, I think everybody's on mute, but for those who are coming in, if you're not on mute, if you can just make sure you're muted. In the beginning, there should be a question and answer at the end. So we welcome any questions and answers. Of course, we want this to be as engaging as possible. But in the meantime, if you can keep your mics, your audios on mute. And thank you again for joining us. Okay. I think we will begin. So good afternoon, everyone. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Kristen Goss, and I am so excited to be sharing today's webinar with my two friends and colleagues, Marianella Collado and Joyce Hall. I'm going to give a brief intro of each of us. I am a family law attorney as well as an estate planning attorney. I have my own firm, KWG Family Legal and Mediation Services. And my good friend here, Joyce Hall, she is a health insurance expert with Health Harvest Insurance, and she specializes in individual, Medicaid, and group insurance benefits. So if you ever are in need, please feel free to reach out to her. And I also have the honor of knowing Marianella Collado. She is one of the owners of Tobias Financial Advisors, and she has so many designations behind her name. I'm not going to spell them all out for you, but she, in a nutshell, to me, is a tax expert, a financial advisor, helping people stay on track when it comes to their finances and ensuring that they're able to live a life not only for themselves for retirement, but also to leave a legacy for those they love the most. So I am so happy to be sharing today's webinar with these two wonderful, amazing professional women. And just to give you a brief background of how the webinars formed, we had a previous one about 2 months ago on the challenges that business owners are faced with in 2024. And as a business owner myself, and focusing on family law and estate planning, I originally had the concept of addressing topics that impact business owners in 2024. We'll be discussing at later dates certain topics such as asset protection, tax savings, and group benefits, just to name a few. But for today, we are going to be talking about technology. And as we all know, in 2024, we are in the age of technology and growth and opportunities. And so as technology continues to change, it's important that we as business owners continue to keep up. And so I am so proud and have the honor of introducing our speaker for today, Dalil Allison. We're going to be talking about AI and automation because this is extremely a hot topic for business owners and businesses in general. I'm going to give a brief bio of Dalil, and then I'm going to turn it over to Dalil to run the show. So for those of you who don't know, Dalil Allison is a technology professional, entrepreneur, and Microsoft partner. As the CEO and co-founder of Rooks DM, a technology consulting firm, he helps alleviate pain points for small to mid-sized professional services firms by using the right technology, including Microsoft 365. Rooks DM does everything from one-time consulting and project implementation to building custom technology solutions. For the past decade, Dalil has worked as a consultant, business analyst, and project manager for Fortune 500 companies to SMBs. He is a passionate entrepreneur who founded Rooks DM, and local networking groups, Digital Marketing Topic and Trends, and Local Coffee Chai, a social group for coffee lovers in Chicago. So to learn more about Dalil, you can go to his website, which is www.rooksdm.com. That's Rooks, Rooks, dm.com. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you, Dalil, to have a conversation with us on AI and automation.
Awesome. I'm really excited. Thank you so much for the intro, Kristen. Really excited to be here. Today, I'm going to talk to you, as Kristen mentioned, about automation and AI. And so what we see through all of the work that we do at Rooks DM and with the clients that we've worked with and just being in the technology space for well over a decade now is obviously in order to become efficient, you need to be able to leverage technology and use it in a way that allows you to automate or streamline your processes. So for today's talk, what I want to chat about is the building blocks of, hey, what are some items that you need to consider ahead of building any of these automations or AI and incorporating them into your business. And then from there, kind of talk about, hey, what are some technologies out there that are cost effective that you can implement today, get it right off the box, pull it from the shelf, get up and running with little to no effort, and then also talk a little bit more about some advanced technologies that you can implement that might require some custom development, but that will certainly kind of meet you where you are in your growth trajectory and help you enable those automations so that way you can be as efficient as possible. And then from there, I'll give a live demo as well too. So we'll talk specifically around AI, and then I'll give a demo on ChatGPT specifically and just use cases in and around how I use it and how we're seeing other firms use it because it is the hot topic out there today. So with that, we like to make this as interactive as possible. So if you do have any questions, feel free to come off of mute or feel free to drop any of your questions that you have into the chat. And my hope by the end of this presentation is that you're able to walk away with some tangible results. As Kristen mentioned, I run a small business myself, so we rely heavily on the technology to help us work as efficiently, as effective as possible. And we have the luxury of knowing the technology, so we're able to implement some of these automations within our firm, but all the work that we do is in and around how do we help our clients be able to leverage this technology so they can become more efficient. And with that said, I'll jump into kind of the main pain points that we see firms face, especially when you're a small business. So first and foremost, the first thing that we see is manual workarounds that everyone has implemented. So certainly when you're just getting started within your business, it may just be you. You're setting some things up. You're kind of figuring things out along the way. And the manual workarounds work great. And the manual workarounds could be simple things. It could be, hey, I have this information I'm getting from a client. I have to copy and paste it from one location to another. I'm receiving these documents that I'm processing very manually. So it might be client sends you a document, you have to download the document, rename it, then move it into a folder. So then that way you can start doing your work. These are manual workarounds that we see, and they work certainly well when you're small. So when you think about just getting started, maybe a handful, 2 to 3 people in your firm, as you think about delegating some of the tasks out, these things work pretty well. But as you continue to scale, the thing that we see is these manual workarounds become an issue. First and foremost is because they're not scalable solutions. So even though you are doing these steps, it requires human effort and a series of steps to be able to allow the task to get completed. And then also what ends up happening, even with these manual solutions, whether small or large, is it takes time out of someone's day. And as you have to do them more and more, then obviously it requires more time. And then it also opens up the opportunity for error. So if you think about, I call it fat fingers, when you're copy and pasting data from one location to another, you're prone to make an error is what we see. And so, like I said, as you're getting started and as you're growing your company, these manual workarounds are perfect. But as you continue to scale, we certainly see that they become a pretty big challenge. And so the thing that we've seen, we always ask the question, why? So why are these workarounds out there? And there's 2 major factors that we see. I grouped the first one into a combination of 2, so knowledge and time gap. So with the knowledge, I always say this: to be able to keep up with technology at the pace that it's moving at today requires you to be a technologist or have a full-time job as a technologist expert, because there's so much that is changing and evolving over time as it relates to the technology. And there's also so many different technologies that one business is used. So if you think about just your email platform, for example, Office 365 off the shelf comes with email, you get calendar, you also get storage with OneDrive and SharePoint, you get Microsoft Teams for collaboration and communication and file storage. And that's just one subscription that you're paying for. So there's obviously certain key technologies that you may need for your business. Another one that we see a lot of is CRMs, for example, being able to keep track of all of your prospects, leads, and clients that come into the door, and being able to nurture those relationships requires a lot of expertise as it relates to knowing, hey, there's so many different technologies out there. What is the feature and functionalities of all of those? And then more importantly, which technology should I put in my technology, what we call ecosystem of tools that I will be leveraging across my firm to allow me to operate and be as efficient as possible. And so, for example, if you're an awesome lawyer like Kristen, then you certainly will be wanting to spend most of your time servicing clients with your legal expertise versus spending the time and knowledge having to get up to speed on, hey, what systems actually work for my firm, or hey, am I using this to the fullest? And because of that, you don't always have the time. And so that's what we see to be a huge challenge as it relates to, hey, I'm just going to throw these manual workarounds at it because that's the easiest and lowest barrier to entry for me to be able to do some of these items. But once again, not sustainable as you think about growing and scaling your firm in the long run. And then secondly is just the cost limitations associated with it. So obviously investing in technology does require dollars for the subscriptions that you're setting up. It also requires, if you're looking for like custom integrations or things that don't come off the shelf, then certainly you will have to invest dollars to be able to get that built. And whether it's you building it yourself internally or kind of hiring someone internally, whether it be an intern or an admin staff or a technology consulting firm, then obviously you have to invest those hard dollars, if you will, into your technology infrastructure. And those can be quite costly. So when you think about anything custom as it relates to software development, it does require a substantial amount of investments on the money side of things. But also on the flip side, what we see here and what I'll talk about a little bit later is the cost limitation can be not fully avoided, but there's some area of opportunity to not have this be a true limitation, because with today's day and age, there's so many technology tools that are out there. With the advancement of software as a service, you can buy these technologies off the shelf and just configure it versus have to build it from the ground up. So there's lots of technologies that are out there that allow you to get a lot of efficiency with not breaking the bank, is what we see. And once again, being a small business owner myself, that comes very handy because I'm able to leverage these technologies out of the box, do some configuration, and get a lot of advancements that I wouldn't have been able to get way back in the day.
Khalil, I'm so excited to learn about this because CRMs do require a lot of legwork. Can you tell us about where AI and automation allow business owners to be more efficient and how it addresses these pain points?
Yeah, so that's a good question, which I'll kind of jump into it right now. So in terms of AI and automation, so what we see from our experience is it affects two sides. So the first one is the business effect. And what we see by that is the ability to leverage it to automate your processes. So a lot of the work that we do is mainly focused on operational efficiency. So if you think about being a law firm or a financial advisory firm, for example, you're there to provide financial plans, financial guidance, investment management, things of that nature for your clients. And in order to do that, there's a lot of steps in between you reaching out to the client, gathering their information, and you providing the services that you're ultimately going to be providing them. And so with AI and automation, what it allows you to do is expedite the time it takes you to do those manual must-do tasks for the client, but don't have to do manually, is what we say. And so with automation, if you think about, I mentioned earlier, copy and pasting data from one location to another, we can leverage automation to say, hey, we'll send a link to the client using JotForm, Microsoft Forms, whatever it may be, some sort of form tool. And based off of the information that they provide on that form, then what we can do is take their first name, last name, contact information, and create a new contact in our CRM automatically. So then any new leads that are coming in the door, I know they're getting tracked directly into my CRM. Another example for like an existing client, you can also use an online form once again to capture documents. So certain online forms allow you to allow your clients to upload documents into that online form. And then with that, once they submit the form, what we can leverage with workflow automation is the ability to process those documents systematically. So I mentioned it earlier of them emailing it to you and then you having to download it, rename it, create a folder, or either just move the document into the folder. In this process, what we're able to do is send them a link. They're still able to provide the information that we need via an upload on this link. And then from there, because we know who the document's coming from, we can then route that document into the appropriate client folder. And we can also use automation to do some renaming of the document at that specific time. So for example, if the form has, maybe they're providing an I-9 and like a diploma for their education experience, then we know on the form, this is a diploma that they're providing, rename it to be their last name, comma, first name, hyphen diploma, and same thing for the ID that they would provide. So it makes it much easier and cleaner to store the documents in a location. And then from there, what we can also do is once those documents get stored to a location, we can send out a notification via Teams chat, for example, to say, hey, Dalil just provided these items. Please go and review them accordingly. So it allows us to get rid of a lot of manual steps that have to happen to serve the client, but that don't necessarily have to happen manually. And with that, the business effective is tremendous. So you become much more efficient, you save time, and then ultimately what it allows you to do is to increase your capacity. And from what we see from our experience, the capacity increase is usually used in a variety of ways. Obviously, the biggest one as you're growing is just use that capacity to be able to take on more clients. Another way that we see that it affects the business is, hey, maybe there's additional service offerings that we want to provide to our current clients. And so with this increased capacity, you're able to do that as well too. And then we do work with some smaller firms. And one of the things that they just like to do is they don't want to be spending 60 to 80 hours a week in their business. So if they can get some wins back in their day using automation, then it helps free up their time so they can use that time for their family, to enjoy weekends off, to not have to work really long hours throughout the day. And like I mentioned, there are some lightweight but very impactful solutions that you can use, online forms being a very, very big one. So some online form tools that we recommend are JotForm, PreciseFP, Microsoft Forms, Typeform. There's so many out there, so something to look into for sure. So that's on the business side. In terms of the client effect with the AI and automation solutions that we've developed is just a streamlined experience, so faster turnaround time. So if you think about a prospect filling out a form on your website, for example, if you can send them an auto reply that's customized by nature, then that makes it more prone to meet them. What I say is you're meeting them exactly where they are. So if I go to Kristen's website and I fill out a form because I'm interested in getting some legal services, I receive an email notification in real time that says, hi, Dalil, thank you so much for filling out this form. A member of our team will be with you shortly. In the meantime, please feel free to book a time on our calendar directly using this Calendly link. Then in that moment, as a client, what I'm able to do is book a time because I'm obviously interested in her services, and then I'm doing it at that specific moment. So she's meeting me exactly where I'm at. So I'm more likely to book that time in real time because it's top of mind and something that I'm focusing on. And that's more on like the prospecting side. But another way that we see it as well too is for current clients, for example. So if you're looking to send them a notification based off where they're case or their matter or what you're working on is at any given time. What you're able to do is if a specific task in your task management system gets updated, you can then automatically send out an email notification to the client saying, hey, your file has moved from this step to this step, and they receive it in real time. So then they know things are moving forward, and you don't have to manually communicate that to them. So they're not having to pick up the phone and call you to say, hey, Kristen, where's my file at? I've been trying to keep tabs of it to make sure I don't owe you anything. So not having to do it manually ensures it's not falling through the cracks. And then it also ensures that the client is being able to receive the appropriate communication along the way. So then that way they're not lost, if you will. And then the other one is, and it kind of ties into kind of sending out notifications, but the ethical responsibility. So obviously we do a lot of work in highly regulated industries. So being able to provide transparency and to be able to protect clients' data with this AI and automation, it allows us to do that because we know, hey, if we capture this data, there might be some sensitive information. If that's the case, we put some parameters around that. So we're ensuring it needs to end up exactly where it should end up and not in the hands of anyone else.
Leo, I mean, you gave us so much to think about. I mean, I think about our daily work here at Tobias, and I know we're getting emails from clients, we're getting files uploaded to AI. So like everything you're saying speaks right at me because, you know, like you said, there's always room for error when we're getting data and we're sending it to someone to file here or, you know, respond to somebody. And so I just want to just grab you and bring you right to my office. But speaking of that, so like, where does one start? Like, where does one start to say, all right, like I clearly, you know, I find that I'm having to put in 60, 70 hours just to catch up on weekends, right? I'm not finding time for myself because I have to do all these administrative things. So like, where should someone start? And does that depend on the size of the business? Like, how do I'm everything you're saying speaks to me. Like, where do I even begin? I guess would be the next question.
Yeah, that's a good question. Our philosophy is process first, technology second. Here, I'll slide to the next one. Good question. So process review would be where I would recommend people to start. So as I mentioned, process first, technology second is the way that we look at it. To your point, I've certainly struggled with that, especially in the early days when I was starting my company, is figuring out, hey, where am I spending a lot of my time? The thing that we see just personally, and then having worked with several clients, the most important thing that you can do is identify where technology can help you and not just assume that, hey, technology is going to help me solve my problem, so I want to throw some technology at it. So from our approach, the way that we would suggest it is document your processes. When you're just getting started, there might be some assumptions that you have to make or some things that you're still figuring out, but any of the steps in your process that you can document along the way will be valuable because what it will do is it will allow you to see any inefficiencies in your process that might not even touch technology. So you might say, hey, why do I have this step before that one? Let me reverse how this is being done because it will make it more efficient. But going through the exercise of documenting it allows you to be able to identify those. And when I say document it, it could be as simple as just taking out a Word document and just going step by step of, hey, when I'm onboarding a new client, here's step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and not even thinking about the technology component, to be quite frank, because what you want to do is just outline everything and then from there go back and do the review of, hey, does this process seem right or is there something that's off? And if it does seem right, then you ask the question of where does technology fit into this that would allow me to automate or streamline this so I don't have to do it manually or have to outsource it to someone to do this manually because it may not be the best use of their time. And from our experience, from all the firms that we work with, specifically in professional services, I have a list here. So the biggest processes to review are these 4 listed underneath. So intake. So intake is one of the most critical components of getting set up appropriately. And the main reason for that is because in the intake process, that's your first time getting data from a new person. And that new person who could potentially become a client you'll need that data over and over again. So if I'm a prospect reaching out once again to Kristen's law firm, then I might fill out a form and it will have my general basic information: first name, last name, email address, phone number, maybe an address, maybe something that's basic. But what I can do is then take that information, put it into the CRM system. I can also take it and use it for the onboarding process. And the onboarding process, as we identify it, is once someone says, hey, I'm committed, I've signed a contract, I want to hire you to provide financial services, for example, and that will trigger the onboarding process. And in the onboarding process, what ends up happening is you probably have to set them up in your systems. As a current client, you probably have to send them some additional information so they can provide you with more details related to their specific file. You probably need to collect payments, things of that nature. So that would trigger the onboarding process. And then from there, the third major process is management. They've hired you to procure the services. This is you're giving them updates. You may be having quarterly meetings with them. You're requesting information from them, but it's everything that you need to do along the way to deliver the service that they hired you to do. And then the last process, which we see a lot of times get overlooked, is the offboarding process. So this is the case where you wrap up the project and the services are no longer needed. Internally, that's very important because from a compliance standpoint, you want to make sure that you archive any appropriate documents. You also want to make sure that people who no longer need access to those archived documents don't have access to them. And then I call it puts the bow on the package, if you will. So it ensures you kind of check all of your boxes to say, hey, did I archive everything? Did we receive the final payment? Did we send the final deliverable? Is everything in the appropriate location that it should be now that this specific client engagement is wrapped up? So that's definitely a critical portion of all of the 4 processes that exist out there. So that would be my recommendation, is just start with process first, outline those items, and then from there understand, hey, is it a process thing or is it a technology thing that could get plugged in to help you be more efficient?
Leo, I was gonna say, it's almost like I knew you were gonna say this, because I have in the back all these ledger papers printed with a bunch of processes that I'm trying to clean up. So I just want to let you know I'm doing my
I can attest to
Awesome.
that, Nella, because I was going to say that I love talking about the whole processes and it does something up here in my brain every time I hear, and so you're speaking my language in regards to that. But one question I think, because lots of our listeners are solo practitioners, and this is amazing and this is very valuable. I see the efficiency piece and all of that, which is going to be great for clients and communication and making sure that everyone's on the same page. But a question for you is, from a budget perspective, is this something that is doable for solo or small firms?
Yeah, so certainly is, especially with the advancement of technologies that are out there in the SaaS model. So you just pay a nominal subscription for all of the different functionalities that a software provider could give to you. The big one that I see too, and let me go to the next slide. So first and foremost, the key one is Microsoft. So I don't know how many people in this room are on Microsoft. Once again, we are Microsoft partners, so we tend to skew a little bit more that way. And the main reason for that is because there's a lot of studies. Oh, perfect, Microsoft user. There's a lot of studies out there that showcase how many firms use Microsoft. And you can see here, it's not just for Fortune 500 companies. And because of that, we small businesses get the kickback, if you will, for the Fortune 500 companies using it. So if they're using it, there's a lot of features and functionalities that are going to be baked into those specific types of technologies. Same thing for Google. If you're on Google, they've made a lot of advancements as well too. So with your Google business license, not only do you get email collaboration, you obviously get the calendar collaboration piece. And then also now with Google Workspaces, you get that so you can communicate and have chat feature and functionality, as well as file storage. So that's the first place we always say start, is depending on who you're using for email, ask the question of, hey, are there other things that I could be using that would allow me to be more efficient? And it might be the chat feature and functionality of using Microsoft Teams, for example, or using Google Workspace, just moving away a little bit from email into more of a centralized communication and structured form of communication for things yield a lot of time savings. And what I mean by that is we even work with clients where we'll go through the exercise to say, hey, if you're working on a specific client file or engagement, for example, how do you communicate today? And a lot of times what we'll see is they'll just say, oh, I just pick up the phone and call one of my colleagues, or I might just send them an email. And so what we ask the question of is, can you do that in a more structured manner that allows the people that need access to things visibility into being able to see those items? And that's where the whole chat communication comes into play, because instead of picking up the phone and maybe disrupting them in real time when they're working on something, you can send them a chat communication, and maybe they have their chat in do not disturb mode. So then that gives them some time to not get disturbed or get interrupted in the middle of a task that they may be working on, but it also ensures that they don't miss it in the future, because obviously they'll go off of do not disturb mode and then they'll see any notifications that you sent to them. So that's the first place I would start, is looking at Google and Microsoft and seeing if there's anything that you could use that would allow you to be more efficient. The other one is the low code, no code tools that are out there, which I'll talk a little bit later about, but there's Microsoft Power Platforms one, Zapier is another, but also just out of the box solutions that are available. So if you think about scheduling automation, back in the day when I first got started, I would do this as well too, of hey Tobias, we want to schedule a meeting. How does next Thursday 3 to 5 look for you? That email would either get lost, we would never get the meeting on the calendar, or either I would get booked with something else. And now with the advancement of tools like Calendly, Acuity, Microsoft Bookings, they make scheduling meetings so much easier. So it's a nominal fee. You pay $10 to $15 per user per month. It works tremendously well. And then once again, why it's important to get your processes documented is because with Calendly, while it does give you the scheduling automation, you want to figure out, how does your calendar work? So you want to create the specific event types that align with, for example, I only do sales calls Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So only people that are looking to meet with me to talk about a potential project can only book a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday slot with me. Versus if I'm doing general business development with people in my network, they have certain days that they can book those times with me. And I tend to book those later in the afternoon, because I see for my efficiency and how I work, those meetings are better off happening in the afternoon, because it gives me the morning time to have free creative space to do some other tasks that are important. And that's really important for small business as well too, because we wear so many different hats. But being able to have a tool like that to make it easier for me to get meetings booked and not have to think about it, because I can send the calendar link. And then also on the flip side, being able to control that, because it has the functionality and features that allow me to say, hey, only Tuesday through Thursday can people book sales calls, and then in the afternoon is the only time that they can book my catch-up business networking calls, if you will. The other thing is integrations out of the box. I talked about Jotform, for example. So Jotform has several different first-party integrations. So if you purchase a Jotform subscription, you're able to integrate it, for example, with OneDrive. So you can say, hey, anytime someone submits this specific form on Jotform, then take any attachments from this form that's submitted and put it into this OneDrive location. Those are very powerful integrations that make it very simple to set up. So it's out of the box. You don't have to pay additionally for that typically, because you already have the license for that software. And then secondly, what it allows you to do is get those quick wins, as I mentioned. So even if you can't go through the whole process of creating a custom automation that renames the document and moves it around, at least you know, hey, once this form is submitted, all these files will go to this one location, and then you can kind of pick it up from there. So we always say, if you can get quick wins along the way, then certainly do that. And with the out of the box integrations that a lot of these softwares have, it allows you to do that relatively easy. The other one for automation and AI. So automation, I don't know if people are familiar with Zapier. That's a pretty popular one, but it's essentially a very user-friendly way that you can set up automations between multiple different types of third-party softwares that are out there. One of the biggest challenges, ourselves included, is we have all these disparate technologies that don't talk to each other. So baking those automations in together is usually a challenge. So if you say, hey, I'm using Calendly for my scheduling automation and I'm using HubSpot for my CRM, then those two don't align. So the question becomes there, how do you bridge the gap between automating anytime someone books a meeting on Calendly and getting that data into HubSpot, which in this case would be your CRM, or how do you automate it even better to say, hey, I'm actually going to get rid of Calendly and use HubSpot's baked in scheduling software that's available, because then that could help you automate the process along the way. So couple different options as it relates to the automation side of things. And then last but not least, I'll talk about AI a little bit further, but there's several different technologies that are out there. One that I talk about is like, we see a lot of times people are they may receive paper documents. In our instance, we work with law firms, so they receive documents from the courts or maybe some other providers that only send paper documents, and they have to do so for legal reasons. And so instead of manually having to process those documents, you could always ask the question of, hey, is there an AI solution out there that allows me to just upload that document into the solution, and it will take the data out of the document and put it into the location that's available? The answer is yes, because we've built a solution like that, but there's also other solutions on the market that allow you to do that. So when you think about, hey, is there technology out there that will help me be more efficient? The answer typically is there certainly is. It's just figuring out, hey, does it align with your budget, and is the demand there? So a lot of times what we see is people will try to over automate things at a time that's not necessary. So you want to say like, hey, if I'm able to cover 80% of my bases, that's good enough, especially in the small business stage is what I say. And so thinking about, hey, what is the majority of tasks that are taking a lot of your time away from you being able to onboard new clients or just serve the current clients you have with additional services, and then figuring out how the automations and AI can plug directly into that.
And Dalil, I don't know when, if you're gonna cover this maybe later, but there's a question in the chat about, can you speak more about Microsoft Power Automate and how it relates to document collection and extraction? That's from Keith. I don't know if you're gonna cover some of that later.
Keith must have seen my slides. Yeah, so I'll cover the Power Automate a little bit later. The one thing before I get to Power Automate that I was going to cover, and just once again, just reiterating like Microsoft, is take a look at what you have for Microsoft 365 business licenses. There's so many different technology, so many different applications that fall under 365. So Outlook is the big one that comes with the email and calendar functionality, but you also get OneDrive, you get Teams. There's Microsoft Planner, which is a great tool to use for task management. We see that used a lot. You could also do SharePoint sites, for example. And then what some of the add-ons, you can get some subscriptions such as Teams Premium. So what Teams Premium, what it does, it allows you to recap your meetings with meeting notes and also your action items. We use that. We've been using it for a little bit over a year now. It's been tremendous time saver. So now when I get on a sales call, any call that I get on, I typically will try to record it. And the main reason that I do that is to allow the AI to transcribe the meeting notes, give me the action items. And then one hack there that you can think about. So once again, working in tandem with the AI tool that you have is whenever I'm in a meeting, I'll try to recap the action items and kind of takeaways towards the end of the meeting and say that. So next steps that me and you talked about are A, B, and C, and that kind of educates the AI solution to know, hey, capture these items at any given time. And that's been working out really well for me. And then, yes, we'll certainly cover. So Power Platform, that's one of the technologies that our team is very experienced with. We use it quite a bit. We have a few different solutions on the Power Platform that we've developed. Power Apps allows you to develop custom apps in a low-code, no-code environment. It's in the Microsoft ecosystem. It also is coupled with a front-end user interface. So in this use case, if there's a portal that you want your internal team members to be able to access, they log in and they're able to interact with it. So if there's certain key data that's getting updated on a specific client matter, for example, and they may have to update things along the way, Power Apps gives you the ability to do that. Power Virtual Agents is the chatbot feature, if you will. So you can build certain chatbots. You could do like an FAQ chatbot. So if there's like frequently asked questions that you get internally, you can build it for that, or for external clients as well too. You can also use it for like SOPs. So if I'm working at a firm and I need to figure out like a specific onboarding process, I can say, hey, please show me where the onboarding SOP is, and you can kind of build a virtual agents that would know, hey, here's a database of SOPs. When the user asks for the onboarding SOP, it will then go find where that file is and then showcase it to the user. Power BI is a big one. So if you think about aggregating data from multiple different locations, a lot of times we see lots of firms are using Excel, and then they're doing a lot of pivot tables and a lot of manipulating of data from different locations, and then looking to generate reports based off of that. You can leverage a tool called Microsoft Power BI to do that. And we actually coupled that with Power Automate, which is the workflow automation. So we can say, hey, grab data from this location, that location, centralize it to one location, and then be able to generate the reports based off of the business logic that's put into that. And then the last one that we do quite a bit of work in sits a little bit behind the scenes, but this is the automation tool. So Power Automate is very comparable to Zapier, which I mentioned earlier. It allows us to take two separate softwares and build an integration that bridges the gap between them. So I mentioned the example of using Calendly and HubSpot. Power Automate would sit in the middle of it. So we could say, hey, anytime someone books a meeting on Calendly, then take their first name, last name, email address, and create a new record in HubSpot. And that would be done through Microsoft Power Automate specifically. And I think the question was more around document collection and extraction. So the solution, so we have a solution that we've built for clients, and what it allows them to do is on the front end, use an online form. So I mentioned like Jot form, Microsoft Forms. So use a form on the front end for their process, and it might be an existing client that you're looking to collect additional data from. So you would have to figure out what the fields on the form are going to be. So in our instance, we were working with an immigration law firm. They were collecting a lot of beneficiary. They were collecting a lot of information related to the different people on that specific matter. So it would be the individual, it could be the spouses, spouse as well too. And so what we did is they would send out this link that had the specific fields that they were looking to capture. So more granular information. I mentioned like passport, educational information, maybe some financial statements as well too. So they were collecting a lot of custom information. And what we were able to do is once that their client hit submit on that form, Power Automate would then trigger, and it would know, hey, take all of this data and put it into this location. So for instance, it would take the documents, rename them, put it into the client folder. It would also take the document, it would take the data out of the Jot form, for example, and centralize all that data into one location. So then we could reuse it for future automations down the road. And it looks like Keith might have a follow-up question on that.
I do. Thank you. Does Power Automate work with the software programs like Clio, with forms that are sent from Clio Grow or documents that are uploaded into Clio Manage?
So I do know we've built automation specifically on Clio. In terms of how it's developed in Power Automate, I'm not entirely sure, to be honest, but I believe it does. I don't know if it's that's native out of the box of like, hey, you can go and get that and drag and drop it, or if you can use something that's known as webhooks, where it's a little bit more involved to be able to say, hey, I want to move things from this location to another using Power Automate. But I do know Power Automate, we've used it for integrations in Clio. How, I don't know all the specifics, but certainly happy to follow up with you offline, and I can get some more information from our delivery team as well too.
Dalil, we also have a question from Edgar on our chat. It says, can you talk privacy concerns with tools like Zapier, since it will potentially be sending client or company data between platforms and systems, particularly since there are so many behind the scenes applications being utilized by many of the software companies?
Yes. So in terms of privacy, obviously privacy is very important. Like I said, we work with a lot of highly regulated industries. I know on our end, we lock down the data, and this is what I was alluding to earlier, is just ensuring that, you know, hey, if we are creating a Power Automate workflow, we're putting that data from where it's originally coming from into the specific location that we want it to go into. Obviously, being in the Microsoft arena, they have a lot of security checks in place. So that's a big one there. And then it's all around procedures as well too. So like one of the things that we make sure to do when we're working with clients is just to ensure that the people who need access to that information are the only people that have access to it. So that even goes beyond setting up the automations, but thinking about roles and permissions within your specific firm and ensuring those are aligned accordingly, because then that will dictate, hey, if we are capturing sensitive information, only the people who need to see it will at the end of the day. So I don't know if that
Okay.
answers your question, Edgar.
Well,
I guess
Ollie,
I'll just a quick follow-up on that. So like, the concern with tools like Zapier, well, let me back up, right? If you use Salesforce, Microsoft, or any of these tools, at least in our firm, we conduct due diligence, not only before we start working with them, but on an ongoing basis, just to make sure that they have this, at least a level of privacy and cybersecurity that we're comfortable with. The issue with that, at least I have with tools like Zapier, is that it's sending data across a lot of these platforms, right? And like, how do you ensure that client data that you may be sending, from a jot form to Salesforce via Zapier is secure? You think, Jotform is secure, you think Microsoft is secure, but I don't know what Zapier might be utilizing and how they may be transacting this data to ensure that we're not accidentally disclosing, client private information.
Yeah, so few different so that might be more of a technical question for our delivery team. I know they do set up stuff on the back end when they're creating these automations, specifically around like capturing social security numbers, which are very sensitive, HIPAA compliant information. So they have some parameters that they set up in terms of like how they configure the automations. The other thing is maybe looking at, when you mentioned like Jotform, like I know, for example, Jotform has a higher tier that you can purchase specifically around collecting highly sensitive information. And from an infrastructure standpoint, how they collect it, how they transmit it, how it's moved is being taken into consideration. So that's why it's important to know, this is a good question of like, if you are collecting highly confidential, sensitive information, you have all the appropriate infrastructure in place. And that goes across all of the different technologies that you're using. So from the inception of, hey, if you're using Jotform, make sure you have the right version of Jotform set up. And then from there, if you are using Power Automate, ensuring that you have the appropriate transmission of how that data is moving from one location to another setup. And then lastly, the third part is ensuring roles and permissions are set up accordingly internally. And then also that the environment is locked down and secure. So, but that is a really good point.
all these platforms sound amazing. Could you show us how we can access these in real time?
So in terms of accessing them in real time, I can talk about AI. So what I was going to do is chat a little bit more about GPT specifically, because this is a big one that everyone is very well aware of at this given time. So what I wanted to do is kind of walk through a high-level demo of how we've been using ChatGPT. And the biggest thing with ChatGPT, kind of tying back to your point from a security standpoint, is to not share any highly confidential information into the tool. So that's something that is very important when you're using this specific piece of technology. But I don't know how many people today are using ChatGPT. If you just want to drop it into the chat, that would be good. See, Kristen is. Let me see, I think
Leo,
awesome.
this is why we're here to learn. I think I shared a story where my son replaced me for a school project with Chat GPT, and I'm highly
It won't fully replace you, but there's the ChatGPT is just awesome. So I use it every day. I have a tab open in my Chrome daily. There's probably not a day that goes by that I don't use ChatGPT. The main reason, once again, I'm a small business owner. I'm going for efficiency. There might be things that I could ask ChatGPT that will help me accelerate the ability to get to the outcome I'm trying to receive. So from a client standpoint, we always get to ask the question of like, how do you use ChatGPT, or what are some good use cases? It varies. The biggest one, as I mentioned, how not to use it is do not put any highly confidential information into ChatGPT, because it's a third-party tool. I don't want to say they can do whatever they want with the data that they receive, but you're training a model based off the data that you're giving it. And so if you give it highly sensitive information, it will have that. So that's the first thing there. There's ways to go around that as well too. So like, for example, if I'm having a client meeting and I'm recording the meeting and I want to get like a paragraph recap, what I will do actually is I'll redact all of the names from the meeting notes that I have. So I couple it. So it's a combination effort here. So what I do is I have Microsoft Teams Premium, and then that'll be able to give me the meeting notes and the action items. And then I want to send over like a synopsis and not a lengthy bulleted list of all of the meeting notes. So what I can do then is just redact any highly sensitive information. The lowest one would be any names. So any names that are in the meeting notes, I will remove, and then I'll look for other things that might be sensitive, and I'll make those discretions. So once again, that's why humans are important. I know there's a lot of talk of like ChatGPT replacing certain tasks and jobs, and certainly I think that will be the case to a certain degree. But at the end of the day, ChatGPT is just like anything else, a tool that we can be able to leverage to help us work more efficiently. So that's the disclaimer there as it relates to security and permissions. For use cases, the best ways that we see that it works, or some ways that some of our clients are using it, some of the ways that we're using it, is any marketing related content is really helpful on. So like if we think about this presentation that I'm doing today, I actually used it to be able to generate a LinkedIn post. So in real time, if I say, hey, I am speaking at an event that's talking about AI and automations, please give me a LinkedIn post. Then what it will do is it will generate a LinkedIn post for this specific thing. And then I can go in and edit it. So you can see there, it's telling me give an event name, a date, things of that nature. It gives me certain emojis. I could also interact with it. So I could say, actually, give me one paragraph only. So if I want it to be shorter, then I can just say it like that, and then it will give me just one paragraph that I can copy and paste or edit to be able to post onto my LinkedIn profile. So the biggest thing is it allows me to not start from a blank canvas. It gives me some ideas on a post that I would want to create. It also gives me some hashtags here that I wouldn't normally put in my posts. So that's always good. So for marketing content, very valuable. I've also used it in another way for marketing content to say, I'm a small business owner that's in the technology space. Give me a social media strategy for content that I can post on LinkedIn. And then it should give me, I can post on LinkedIn. And what it will do is it'll generate, so this is saying, it's giving me things to think about. So in this case, it's not what I want. I want the actual answer. And let's see if it gives me one. So then I would probably respond back with this to say, oh, here it is. Okay. So then it's giving me content ideas for the month. So you can see here, week 1, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, post these specific things, week 2, week 3, week 4, so on and so forth. So that's something that would make it much easier for me to get a plan in place for my social media, specifically around LinkedIn. The other way that we see ChatGPT being used is I use this daily for email responses. So for example, there was a meeting, there was a prospect that I had reached out to. I was looking to procure services with this specific prospect. And so they had sent me a response back. So I said, give me a response to this email that a prospect sent to me. Ideally, I like to get some more info from them on why they decided on this. So I copy and pasted out the email that this person sent me. And then it actually gave me a response saying, thank you for letting me know, so on and so forth. And for this one, you can see the intent that I'm going for as it relates to the response. So for this specific prospect, I wanted to know why. So I said, I'd like to get some info from them on why they decided on this specific decision. And in the email that it gave me, it kind of is promoting that. And once again, I can take this, modify it, I can make it shorter, I can do what I want with it. But the most important thing is it accelerates the time for me to be able to get a response that I would need from that specific person and the outcome that I'm ultimately looking to go for. I use it quite a bit daily for things like this. The other one that it's really helpful for is if you're looking to synthesize information. I talked about the meeting notes and copy and pasting out information related to that. But I had earlier went to a article that was talking about AI specifically. So you can see here, this is the article. I said, give me a summary of this article. And then I put the actual link into here. And so it gave me a high level summary on what this article was. And then it said, for more details, click on that. And then I could also probably respond to it and say, give me 1 to 3 bullets from this article that I can use for a presentation that I'm giving on AI. And let's see what it does. So it looks like this article had some information related to AI in healthcare, the challenges related to the ethical challenge related to it, and then the environmental impact. So I could review this and decide, hey, do I want to pull those out and reference this article specifically for the presentation that I'm getting ready to do. I also use, one last thing is, I use this a lot for research. So like if I'm doing research, I still use Google quite a bit, but I'll use this, for example, to figure out if I'm prospecting for a specific client or if there's any information I want to get related to a specific topic, I will go to ChatGPT and ask it for information. And then on the small business side of things, I talk about wearing the multiple hats. This is really good for like planning out vacations and stuff. I've used it to say, hey, I'm traveling to Savannah. What are the top things to do in Savannah? It gives me a quick list of items that are pretty popular in Savannah. And then I'll just couple that with my Google search. But it helps accelerate the time for me to be able to get answers on questions that I'm looking to get answers for. So.
Wow, that was
and I think we are
incredible.
right.
I'm going to say ChatGPT may have replaced me to give my son ideas for the project, but I had to put all the art together, okay? So he said, the only thing ChatGPT can't do is show up at my door and put the collage together. So I'm just going to point that out. This was fantastic.
Very true.
I don't know if anybody has any questions before we wrap up. It's so helpful here. The audience, anybody has questions for Dalil? Excellent, excellent. So I think Kristen's gonna take us home, and of course we have everyone's contact information. And if you want to get in touch with Dalil, his contact information is there.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jalil, for this wonderful presentation. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. And stay tuned for more information on additional topics we will be presenting on throughout 2024. So thank you again for your time. And thank you, Dalil, for joining us today. Take
Thank
care,
you so
everyone.
much for having me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.